Donald Trump used his social media website yesterday to amplify a crude remark about Vice President Kamala Harris that suggested that VP Harris traded sexual favors to help her political career. The post by another user on Truth Social was an image of Ms. Harris and Hillary Clinton, Trump's opponent in 2016, and the text read, "Funny how blowjobs impacted both their careers differently." Now, this repost was the second time in 10 days that the former president shared content from his personal account making sexually oriented attacks on VP Harris. Though he has a history of making crass insults about his opponents, the repost signals Trump's willingness to continue to shatter long-standing norms of political speech and engage in conduct beneath the office of the president. And perhaps this despicable conduct is being fueled by the fact that Kamala Harris has surged ahead of Donald Trump, 48% to 43%. This is according to a new USA Today Suffolk University poll. The findings reflect an 8-point turnaround in the presidential race from late June, when Trump had led Biden in the survey by nearly 4 points. And trading friendship bracelets at political rallies, wearing t-shirts to say "in my voting era," holding debate watch parties that are glittering as album drop parties. Well, these are just a few ways some Taylor Swift fans are seeking to intertwine their fandom with get out the vote efforts ahead of the presidential election, urging their fellow Swifties to support VP Harris. Organizers on a Zoom call had 34,000 people join the Swifties, and they raised more than $122,000 with guests including Carole King and Elizabeth Warren. And Vice President Harris says she plans to appoint a Republican to her cabinet if she's elected in November. In a clip of a CNN interview that will air tonight at 9 p.m. EST, Harris told the anchor Dana Bash that she would definitely consider a diverse cabinet that would include someone from the Republican Party. And Vice President Harris continued campaigning Thursday in Georgia, where she held a rally in Savannah. The Democrats believe not only Georgia, but states like North Carolina are in play and can be won by Vice President Harris and Tim Walz. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, and this is the hour where we go deep, where we dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories people are talking about. Well, in hour 2 today, I'm going to be talking with Nicole Turner Lee. She is a longtime expert in technology policy and community development. She's out with a new book called Digitally Invisible: How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. This book came out just August 6th of this year, and it is perfectly timed given how much we are seeing the internet play such a big role in this presidential election, whether it's reposts of crass social media posts like the one Donald Trump retweeted about VP Harris and Hillary Clinton, or it's the targeting of Black voters with disinformation, or the creation of bot accounts that are faking and pretending to be Black people supporting Donald Trump. The internet is front and center in this election. I'm so happy in this hour to be joined by Nicole Turner Lee. Welcome to the show, Nicole, and thank you for writing this book and reminding us that the internet is not created equally, and that there are people still in this country that do not have access to internet, don't have access to the internet, and people who are who have access, but who are being targeted in ways that are creating confusion and chaos. So first, I just want to ask you, what was the impetus for you writing this book in this moment?
Well, first and foremost, Areva, thank you for having me. And we appreciate all of the news that you are gathering for us on not just the politics at hand, but just giving us the full scheme of how we have to be attentive and made aware. I mean, this election is pretty critical, right? And I mean, you put out some things that I think we shouldn't be joking about when we start talking about memes that are sort of manipulating Vice President there. And we have to be cautious as we think about how technology is evolving. So thank you. I appreciate you for having me on here, particularly at this opportune time, as you have mentioned. It's so interesting. I am a fellow at the Brookings Institution by heart. I know that you are a civil rights attorney. Social justice has always been at my core, dating back to the days when I was working with the Rainbow Push Coalition. And for me, technology is just an extension of that. We fight every day for voting rights. We've got to fight for tech rights. And the book really came out of this experience that I've had. One, as a person who has been digitally invisible, right? As a woman of color who sits in meetings on tech and where people see me, but they don't see me because, as you mentioned, there's not many of us that are in this space. But it also came at a time where the pandemic had demonstrated just how important it was to be connected to the internet. And I don't know about you, but there were a lot of folks in my house who were not in school trying to make it through, online learning. We were having me upstairs in the room, working remotely, the kids downstairs, one in one room, the other one trying to make it through high school and middle school. And at the end of the day, we made it through this awful pandemic and we navigated through this, Areva. But what we found out was that there are millions of people who are not connected. And so this book is an ode to them. And it's an ode to humans who sit around this country in rural and urban America, who look like you and I, who are essentially invisible. They're in these bunkers of places where having access is not a choice or a convenience. And
so that seems, Nicole, to be almost unbelievable, right?
I know, right?
That anyone cannot access the internet, particularly because everyone has one of these smartphones. 99% of all Americans, I have to imagine, and that's just a made-up statistic, it's not real, so don't quote me on it. But most people do have access to the internet, you would think, on the phone, or they can go to a library or a university or a school. But talk to us about these people who are not able to access the internet. Where do they live, and what is the issue that's preventing them from having that access?
Areva, I've done this for so long that I've had the experience of seeing people who weren't connected to things like the 386 computer. I don't know if you remember that. That was the one that back in the days, you had to wait for the screeching modem sound and America Online came on and you got your email. I mean, to your point, fast forward to today, so many more people are connected. In fact, you're not way off in terms of your stats. At least 99% and 97% of Hispanics and Black Americans have some connectivity through a smartphone. But this is why I call people digitally invisible in my book, right? Because even though they have access to the technology, there was a guy in Stanton, Virginia that I met, an African-American male, a day laborer. He had a phone, but he had no minutes halfway through the month when he was trying to find temporary.
Wait, let me stop you, Nicole. So when you say they are invisible, you're not saying, because you just gave us that stat, and Robert is telling us 310 million Americans have a smartphone. So you're not saying that people don't have access to a phone. You're saying even though they have access to the internet, there may be other issues.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Joseph in Stanton, Virginia, he has a phone, but he doesn't have enough minutes to take him through the rest of the month for getting temporary employment. Mm-hmm. I went to visit him twice, right? Get this. The first time I met him, I just pulled up on him because I was doing a lot of anthropological work and just wanted to talk to the community. The second time I came back, because I had a person who wanted to offer him a phone with some data, he wasn't still connected. So that tells me as a Black man that he still wasn't able to work. Or there was a woman I met in a parking lot, Areva. She was in the library complaining about not having a library card. And when I chased her down, I'm afraid I was a stalker as I was writing this book because I wanted to talk to everyday people. It turns out that she goes to the library because she's checking on the diagnosis of her stage 4 breast cancer.
Wow.
There are people who are invisible, and they're not just Black people. There are farmers that live in very rural, remote areas that I had never seen before, 3-4 hours outside of Washington, D.C., where I sit, who live in communities with 5-room schools where they're farmers and they can look just at the end of their property and they are not able to order supplies or tire mechanic. Wow. My point is, like, to your thoughts, right? We have people who are connected to the internet. We know that was the game changer when it came to the pandemic, but we have millions of people who I consider to be digitally invisible. Some of them in our own families that do not have access, and they're not participating in the conversations you just talked about in terms of how technology is changing the game on political narratives.
Yeah, when we come forward, I want to talk about how we get those people to become visible, those invisible people, those 310 million Americans, some of which, as you said, have access but are invisible. And then this issue that's so prominent in this election, and that is the disinformation that's being targeted specifically to Black communities. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Febreze Fabric Talk. Hey, it's me, your couch. Today's my favorite day of the week. Febreze Fabric Spray Day. The occasional deep cleanse are nice, but in between, you know I'm needing a refresh. Ooh, here she comes with the Febreze Fabric Spray. Oh yeah, spritz them armrests. Don't be shy. Nothing like a good spray down to get me smelling so fresh and clean. Don't forget my back. Nice. Febreze Fabric Spray. It's just that easy. Now we can both breathe happy. Febreze. La 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 la.
What if the conversation about menopause and bladder leaks didn't have to be a secret? Always Discreet helps you embrace this new chapter with confidence, offering a bladder leak solution that keeps you worry-free. Its rapid dry cord quickly locks away even the biggest gushes with up to 0 leaks, 0 wet feel, and 0 odor. So you can jump, dance, sneeze, and laugh uninterrupted. Everyday protection for every level of leak. We've got you. Always. Try Always Discreet today.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and joining me in this hour is Nicole Turner-Lee. She is an expert in technology, policy, and community development, and she's written a really important book called Digitally Invisible. I'm sorry. How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. The book just came out on August 6th of this year. So fresh off the press, and she stopped by to talk to us about this important book at this really critical time. I mean, the Internet is both our friend and a foe at the same time. So Nicole, as much as we love the internet, as much as we love having access to all this information, the reality is that a lot of people are targeted on the internet. So much disinformation. We know during the 2016 election, there was all this talk of these Russian bots and Russian interference, but now it's not just foreign actors. We have to worry about the owners, Elon Musk of X, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, these individuals who have all of this power So they are determining through these algorithms what information we see. How many times do we have our friends say, I don't see your post on Facebook anymore. I don't see your post on Instagram. So these companies are determining what information is fed to us. I mean, oh my God, don't say you're thinking about buying a lamp. And then every lamp company in the world starts targeting you, with with ads and deals on lamps. Is this a good thing that we have, these companies with so much power?
Unmute.
We need people to be connected to the internet, because when they're connected to the internet, they actually can, in some respects, benefit from many of the things that you just spoke about, right? I don't know about you. When the holidays come around, I get those recommendations for the gifts to buy people based on what I bought my mother in the past. It does work, right? I like a certain type of shoe, a certain type of dress, and clearly serves me those recommendations as advertisements all day, all the time. And I am clicking on them, right? I shouldn't be, but I am clicking on them. But to your point, just because the internet offers us that type of convenience through artificial intelligence, it doesn't always mean that it's good for us. And so I love the way you talked about in the beginning, how we're beginning to see what these things called memes are, where they're not necessarily just the information that we received in 2016 that basically appeared to show Hillary with a darkened face or mean, or to show people that your polling place is wrong. We're actually seeing this new technology that is manipulative, not only in, the emotional response that we have to it, but in text, in image, in voice, and other extractions that in many respects can look, sound, and emulate us. And it can use celebrities to do so. I mean, what you talked about in terms of the meme that was created for Vice President Harris, or how Taylor Swift has been manipulated by the other party. These are real disinformation tactics that in many respects, and if I could share it, one, they do serve to dissuade Black voters from going to the polls, or other voters who in many respects don't know what they're looking for, right? All they know is that they're being bombarded by information on broadcast, radio, the internet, and they're receiving it from trusted friends, right? So they're thinking this must be right because I'm getting it from somebody I know. Sometimes that text, Reva, right? That text can be so dangerous, but yet we don't know how dangerous it is. Then there's this other part of it that I like to share, which are those photos, the funny stuff, the cat videos that we share, the ones that we look like we're having a good time. The greatest meme that came out of the DNC, because I know you were there, was the one with the vice president's son, and then just how his face was captured in the smiles. To your point, we have the potential as Black voters, marginalized voters, disenfranchised voters, to really be sucked into this vortex. And we really have to raise awareness among our communities that we have some agency over these, and that these things are happening to us, even when we don't understand what they are.
But how, Nicole, does the average person distinguish between these AI created images and what's real? Because right now, Donald Trump has an ad he started on Wednesday, yesterday. It's an ad targeting Black women. He has about 12 Black women in this ad. And these women are saying, we're not with her. We're supporting Donald Trump because of his policies. And for me, I question whether that's a real ad. And they say in this ad, millions of African-American women agree with us that Donald Trump is best for the economy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know anyone that would do that ad unless they were paid a tremendous amount of money. And we definitely don't know millions of women, Black women in particular, who are supporting Donald Trump. So how would you even know if this is a legit ad or if this is an artificially intelligent made ad? That's the thing that really worries me in this moment, is experts like yourself know the difference, but the average person is just scrolling their feed that's getting all of these ads targeted to them. They won't know. And they may think, oh my God, maybe there's been a change in Black women policies. Right. Maybe now all Black women are supporting Donald Trump.
I love that question, because we don't know, right? And the average person doesn't have the tools or the transparency to say that this is fake. I saw that same ad, and like you, I'm like, I'm with Black women, right? I'm not with her. And that meant all those women that were highlighted in the video. until policymakers actually help us with that distinction, it's going to be difficult. We need disclosures, right? Something that says this is AI generated, something that says this is funded by a party that is transparent. Until we have things like that, labels, markers, some type of indication that people know that it's not real, it's going to be really difficult for us to distinguish with that. I mean, AI is somewhat perfect. If it looks too perfect, like my grandmother would say, and too true, it probably is fake, right? But at the same token, I think that the awareness that we're in and the bombardment of information that we get every second, my friend, it is so difficult for the average person to delineate what is true and what is false.
Yeah, we thought about playing that ad, but obviously we don't want to create an opportunity to promote it because, again, I don't know if it's real. We don't know if these people have been paid, if this is a paid endorsement. Like, ads now, if you're watching an ad on television, they will tell you these are paid actors. They'll let you know this is not an endorsement by someone who's used this product and who has, belief in it. And we do know, Nicole, that the internet has come down hard on those static ads. So you are able to see, like Kim Kardashian, if she's posting an ad about Wheaties, she has to say, this is an advertisement. Like, I'm getting paid for this. This isn't just me saying I love Wheaties. And that's done something. It's helped. And we know that there have been lawsuits that have been filed and people have been penalized. They've had to face penalties, civil penalties, for not being forthright about an endorsement. But on the internet, I don't know. I'm not sensing that some of these ads that people see on YouTube and other places have that same level of those same levels of safeguards in place. And it does create a real sense of concern in this moment of, where people are vying for the Black vote. Both parties saying they're going after the Black vote. They're investing in the Black community. And you're seeing ads from both sides targeting ads from Democrats and ads from Republicans targeting Black voters. When we come forward, I do want to talk about these digitally invisible people. I'm thinking about elders and people who have what used to be called the Obama phones and phones that may be issued to them by different nonprofit organizations or governmental entities. Many of those phones have that limited access that you talked about. How might that impact people's ability to get current news and information that could be really vital to this election and to their lives in general? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
In real time.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. ABC News is reportedly declining a request from Vice President Harris to have unmuted microphones at next month's debate against former President Trump. That's according to the New York Post. The rules are similar to the last debate between Trump and President Biden. There will be no audience, no notes, and microphones will be turned off when the opposing candidate is speaking. The Harris campaign tried to have both candidates' microphones live for the entire 90 minutes, while Trump's team wanted the same rules as last time. The hit-and-run crash in Manhattan last weekend that killed a Black man a day before his wedding reportedly also involved an NYPD officer. The Daily News reports the driver, who is still being sought, hit an NYPD off-duty transit cop, and that triggered a police pursuit of the vehicle before the deadly crash. Mayor Eric Adams, who is Black, is offering $1,000 of his own money for information that leads to the driver. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Watch for stop delays in Hollywood as an accident remains in the center divider of 101 South at the Western Avenue Santa Monica Boulevard interchange. Stop traffic continues from Orlando Boulevard. In Gardena, stop traffic from 223rd Street is up to 20 minutes as an accident blocks the right lane of the 110 North at Redondo Beach Boulevard. Brush fire remains on the right shoulder at Boyle Heights 10 West after Highway 60, and watch for stop traffic from the 5-101 interchange with fire crews on scene. And in Willowbrook, 2 right lanes are blocked with an accident on the 105 West after Wilmington Avenue with a 25-minute backup from Paramount Boulevard. 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. Robert Half is here to help. Their recruiting professionals utilize their award-winning AI to connect businesses with highly skilled talent. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com/talent today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The contract extension signed Thursday morning by Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry puts him in a very special category with LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Curry, LeBron, and Durant are the only players in NBA history to pass $500 million in career earnings. Curry signed a one-year extension worth $62.6 million. The deal keeps Curry with Golden State through the 2026-27 season. Curry had 2 years left on the contract that he signed in 2021. The extension paves the way for the 36-year-old Curry to finish his career with Golden State. 4 HBCU schools are on the college football schedule today. All 4 teams are playing their season opener on the road. Howard University at Rutgers, Jackson State at Louisiana Monroe, North Carolina A&T at Wake Forest, and Arkansas Pine Bluff at the University of Arkansas. We'll have recaps for you tomorrow morning on all 4 games. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Dropping it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Chevy Radio 30 before and after code GWMR 0254000.
With the incredibly spacious 3-row Chevy Traverse, you can change.
Let's just meet at the concert.
Into.
Why don't I pick all you guys up on the way?
The advanced safety engineered Chevy Blazer EV lets you turn. You think we should turn back? Into. Full steam ahead. And with the affordable Equinox EV.
Keep an eye out for the next Charger, kids.
Becomes.
Get comfortable, kids. We'll be home in 4 hours.
For summer adventures, Chevy's got you. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a whole lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 15. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're back, and I'm joined in this hour with Nicole Turner-Lee. She's with me today. She's out with a new book called Digitally Invisible: How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. And we've been talking a lot about how African Americans, particularly in this voting cycle, are being targeted online. Lots of accounts that are fake accounts. Lots of artificial intelligence being used to create ads to suggest that certain elected officials or people who want to be elected officials have the support of certain constituent groups when it's not true. A lot of doctoring of pictures and words and sounds from people to give a false impression. And what's being done to fight it, if anything? So in this moment, I remember, Nicole, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, in 2016 getting so much backlash because they were not controlling, the false advertising and the bots and the interference on the internet. Do we see that same kind of backlash now that we have Twitter, that's now X, formerly Twitter, owned by Elon Musk? Jeff Zuckerberg coming out just the other day saying that he was pressured to delete certain messages on his platforms during COVID by the Biden administration, saying if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't do it, praising Donald Trump. So it seems like the owners of these social media platforms are saying, no, we don't want any control over our content. We're going to control the content. And Ben Chavis, Dr. Ben Chavis, I interviewed him when I was at the DNC. He said that because of what we're seeing with these social media sites, that African Americans need to have their own Twitter, their own Facebook of sorts, and that he was behind a group that was trying to make that happen. So I know there's a lot in that question, but let's start at the back of the question. How likely is it that we see a Black-owned social media site that could ever be as big as a Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter that's now called X?
I love that question. And it would be Dr. Ben that would actually, suggest that we need to create that media asset. It's so interesting. I think when Black Americans realized that major incumbent newspapers were not covering our stories authentically is when we actually did come up with our own media outlets. And we've seen the same with radio as well as television stations and cable networks. The thing about the internet that's so interesting is I don't think you remember this, right? And actually, most people do. And I'm actually going to put a plug because you have been the best conversation I've had in a long time when it comes to tech. There was a time when most of us flocked to Twitter. Remember, we went to the former Twitter, and at some point we called it Black Twitter, even though we didn't own a patent, a trademark, or anything that was associated with stock. It was Black Twitter. And to some extent, it was helpful. The Black Lives Matter movement actually used Twitter in many respects to get people out to protest. We were able to move the agenda when it came to body worn cameras. We were able to alert people to the type of egregious actions that have happened in terms of poor apples or bad apples in policing. Here we are today, and we do have a monopoly among these companies that makes it very difficult for us to be represented. And to your point, kind of working backwards, as you've suggested, the content moderation rests upon these companies. There's a couple of things about these companies we need to be aware of. There are not many people that look like us who work there. We don't sit in the C-suite. We don't have the stock. Reverend Jackson alerted us to that a few years ago, if you remember, when he opened the can of worms on how many Black people actually sat in the C-suite, and that was very few. But we are consumers. We're subjects of these technologies. And in many respects, we need to look at ourselves. When we think of places like X, Elon Musk has been really clear in terms of his relationship and respect of the Black community. So I do agree with Dr. Ben. We have to build these technologies and tools in ways that actually speak to our experiences, speak to our joys, as well as our trauma, right? And we're the only people who can do that. It's tough because you got to have equity. And that is the challenge that we see. I mean, it's just like elections. People vote their conscience and they vote where the money takes them. And that is something that, we're so proud, for example, Vice President Harris, that she was able to come back and raise the amounts of money that she has independently of the decision to run, as a candidate when President Biden stepped out. But more importantly, I think he's right. We're going to have to take charge of our digital footprint and our profile and figure out ways to curate shows like yours in ways that are what I call it. They're actually responses to false information. As my mama would say, you can't get real information unless you trust the source, right? And so misinformation comes because we don't have a source of truth.
Yeah, no, I agree with Dr. Ben 100%. And as you said, though, challenges abound in terms of we know such a small percentage of investment dollars go to Black founders. So even when you talk about, a Black founder being able to put together the kind of capital that would be needed to launch a platform and then be able to market that platform and get the advertisers and get, the whole infrastructure in place to, make that platform the destination for Black folks. We know that that's an uphill battle. Doesn't mean we can't tackle it, but definitely something that is going to probably be some time off. So in the interim, we have this issue, though, of this, this information that just comes at us. And it's so easy, Nicole, to repeat it. Like, I'll give you an example that we got caught up in. There was a story after the Olympics saying that Simone Biles. She was so fired up about Kamala Harris. She was going to donate $4 million for each of the medals that the gymnast from the U.S. team had won. She's going to donate $4 million to the Harris Walls team. And we reported that as if that was news. And then we started thinking ourselves, like, because we checked these sources, you know, is it in the Washington Post, the New York Times? Is it on NBC? Is it on MSNBC? You know, and we could not find this story. We couldn't find it in Sports Illustrated. We couldn't find it in places where it should have been. And I retracted it. I went on air the next day and said, hey, guys, when I'm wrong, I'm the first to say I'm wrong. I reported out the story. I can't find it. And it was the investigatory work of my producer, Robert, who said, well, wait a minute. She was only worth or earned about $7 million the year before. So if you're only rocking $7 million, you're not likely to be giving $4 million away to a political campaign. But here we are taking that story. And then there was a story about Simone. She was pregnant, that she was retiring because she was having a baby. So all these stories, and on the surface, they seem somewhat plausible. She's rich, you know, rich gymnasts give some money to a campaign. But I mean, that's an example of how easy these stories get spread. And they just go from one user to the next user. And then 100 million people have cited that incorrect, that inaccurate story.
Yeah, I mean, that I love the way you pointed out, because it happens all the time, right? I mean, we have many people who share information that may be false. And some of that false information, as you're suggesting, it could be hopeful, right? But in the end, we retract it, but it's not necessarily going to disrupt or disenfranchise people. So, you know, to your point, I think we're so much bombarded with so much information that we cannot tease through all the information that we actually can decipher. It is such a different world with the internet. And it's such a different world as artificial intelligence enables chatbots and other things to actually push this content out. So I love what you did, because most people, they share it, they wrong, and they still keep it out. Okay. They don't go back and say, I made a mistake, because they're too embarrassed, right? We need people to know it is okay to go back and say, this person did not die, or Beyonce is not coming to the DNC, whoever started that rumor. But I think at the end of the day, what I love about this conversation too, there are things we have to do as a community. Like, I believe churches, the same way that they went to the pulpit and talked about the internet and affordable connectivity, like you talked about, in terms of people getting $9.99, $30, $50, we need to take these issues to the pulpit. We need to raise awareness among our community that we can easily get sucked into this, even when it's from people we know. And until we do that, and we make sure that media literacy is just as important as getting a driver's license in this country, and it's just as important for our own families to sit down and talk about these things, it's always going to be where technology is just adjacent to everything else. You know what I mean? And that's why we got to really raise the visibility that this is a civil rights issue when it's all said and done.
No, and I love that, having those conversations, because oftentimes what you'll hear people say is, get off that internet. Put that phone down. That ain't happening. That train has left the station. People are not putting their phones down. I'm literally, and I'm sure this has happened to you, you're at dinner with friends and everybody's head is down in their phone. I mean, we're not socializing. We are in our own.
We are in our own way, right?
The old school where we're engaging, and nobody's mad. Nobody's saying, "Oh, put that phone down," because everybody's checking their emails. Everybody's checking their text messages. I've been at concerts with people where everybody's on their phone. I mean, it's just become a part of our lives. So pastors, don't stand in church and tell young people to put their phones down. They're not putting their phones down. They're an extension of their limbs. They are like their right and left hand. But what we can do is have, as you said, these intelligent conversations about how to use the internet in a safe way, not be sucked in by predators and false advertising and, you know, other things that are harmful to our community. And I don't think we have nearly enough conversations about how to be safe and how to safeguard children, for instance, as well as seniors. I do want to talk about seniors because I think they're in a unique class. Many of them are those digitally invisible because they either don't know how to use the technology, they don't have sufficient, access in terms of the minutes on their phones, or they don't have the kind of, programs that allow them to have unlimited access to share even information with families and friends, which we know are very, very important to keeping elderly people stimulated and keeping them engaged in our community. When we come forward, more with Nicole Turner-Lee on the digitally invisible. Her new book is out, How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers. At ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
With the incredibly spacious 3-row Chevy Traverse, you can change
Let's just meet at the concert.
into
Why don't I pick all you guys up on the way?
the advanced safety engineered Chevy Blazer EV lets you turn. You think we should turn back? Into full steam ahead. And with the affordable Equinox EV,
Keep an eye out for the next charger, kids.
becomes
Get comfortable, kids. We'll be home in 4 hours.
for all kinds of summer adventures. Chevy's got you. Well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500 Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, Blazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together let's drive. 1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 13.5%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/3/24.
Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
I am speaking with Nicole Turner Lee. She is a tech expert. She's out with a new book called Digitally Invisible: How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. Nicole, how can people find your book? And will you be out doing any book signings, book tour? Tell us about what the plan is for getting the book out to those folks that need to hear this information.
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I'm always willing to share. This book is available right now wherever books are sold. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You find it in your local bookstore. If they don't have it, ask for it. Please, please pick up the book, take a picture, tag me. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, Instagram. I'd love to hear from you around this book. And I'm going to be starting my tour today. I just actually came back from Martha's Vineyard. I had to go to where people were vacationing, Areva, because August was a busy month. Let's just put it like that. But September, look for me in Washington, D.C. I'll be in Philadelphia. I'll be in Los Angeles. I'll be in Cleveland. If you go to my website, which has been scrolling, www.NicoleTurnerLee.com, you will get those tour dates. They are coming soon with regards to where I am confirmed. Baltimore, I'm coming for you as well at the Enoch Pratt Free Library. Please, let's talk and have this conversation.
I'm so glad to see you are out on the road. We'll get out on the road coming up in September But tell us, who is this book for? So people often, I have a lot of book authors on my show, and people will often ask me, oh, I love that person, I heard that book, but I don't know if that book is for me. So talk to us about who the audience is, specifically who the audience is for this book.
Well, you mentioned seniors. You know, my mother is a senior. I don't know about many of you, but during the pandemic, she was alone. And there was a lot that our family had to negotiate just to make sure she was okay. Because as you know, it was such a hard time to be in the comfort and visibility with her, right? Because the pandemic really scared her, and the thought of getting COVID scared us. With that being the case, this book is written for people like her. It's written for average, everyday Americans, people who are navigating through urban and rural areas, people who are trying to figure out, what does this really mean for my life? I wrote the book for them. And I actually narrate the book through stories of people like them. So I mentioned Joseph earlier. I mentioned the woman that I met in the parking lot. There are so many stories of people like that, Areva, that you will find a connection with that person, whether Black, white, rural, urban, Latina, Black American, you name it, poor, rich. There is somebody in there for you. So that was where my audience primarily lied, to be able to tell their stories about themselves and their communities. The other reason,
I did mention, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other reason I did it, to tell you the truth, just so you know, I look up to people like you, right? There's not a lot of Black women doing tech, not a lot of Black women doing civil rights and law. So the book is also written for those women who want to see somebody like myself and yourself who can actually come into these spaces and really hang on tight. And we know what we're talking about, right? In terms of giving life to those conversations.
Well, thank you for that. And I do want to talk about seniors, because one of my biggest fans, who's a faithful watcher of this show and listener of this show, is my aunt. She lives in St. Louis. She's 92 years old, and she is very connected to the internet. She's on TikTok, she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, she FaceTimes with her friends, but so many of her peers, those that are still living, aren't. They are afraid of, they're afraid of the internet. They don't know how to use social media. And that concerns me, because we know for a lot of seniors, as you said, during COVID, they lost connectivity with their family and their friends, and the internet can become a way for them to become visible, to connect with family and friends. What do you suggest for those seniors who feel like, oh, they're too nervous, like they may push the button and something's going to fall apart or blow up? They just get really, really anxious about social media and using the internet.
Well, there's two things I would say to the senior. Way to go to your aunt, right? 92 and on TikTok. I'm not even on TikTok yet. Please teach me. Listen, we want our seniors to be engaged, because the technology is a way to sort of avert isolation, depression, and other, areas in which their lives may be sheltered, because we're just not moving around as much as we want to, given the convenience of the internet. So I'm happy that she's actually engaged in those. I mean, what I found in my book, seniors are huge consumers of internet content. And when they actually learn how it can help them with healthcare, education, benefits, keep in touch with the grandchildren, makes them savvy, it actually becomes more of an asset for them, so they can also age gracefully in place. And I think that's an interesting way for us to think about our seniors, right? How can they leverage the technology where they can be part of this ecosystem that is defining how they live, learn, and earn? The same token, when I was in Syracuse, New York, I talked to seniors at an affordable housing complex, right? They're also afraid of their privacy being stolen. You have to be aware that seniors, because they're so much engaged online, sometimes they can be very culpable. And we talked a little bit about disinformation and misinformation, Areva. Seniors get those robocalls that sound like President Joe Biden or some niece or nephew, and they get scared to actually respond in ways that are not healthy for them. So what I would suggest to seniors, keep your intuition high the same way that you keep it high with everything else. If it doesn't sound right, it probably isn't right. And if somebody is pressing you to do something that you cannot do, don't do it. And at the same token, rely upon your networks and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, there's some great ads that tell seniors now, just hang up. Like if you get a call from one of these, like you said, hi, this is Joe Biden, or hi, this is Kamala Harris, hang up. Like chances are it's not them. And if it is them, they will call back and make sure that they connect with you. But so many seniors are being scammed. I'm hearing about campaign scams now, Nicole, where people are calling, pretending to be someone and pretending to be a part of the Kamala Harris, in particular, campaign, and asking them to sign up, to make donations. And of course, it is one big scam. Even I put some furniture on Facebook, the marketplace, to sell. I had a young neighbor helping me out, and she's like all excited, sending me this guy that says he wants this furniture. He's going to pick it all up, and then he wanted my address and full name for a check that he was going to write me. I said, no, sweetie, we don't take checks. He's going to go on Venmo or Cash App or somehow and pay me up front. Then I'll release this information. And of course, it never happened. And he was just fishing, trying to get information from us rather than being a legitimate buyer. So it doesn't matter who you are, what your level of education is, what your level of, economics are. If you are online, you could be subject to some kind of scam. So we all have to be particularly diligent to make sure we're not falling prey to those scams. Talking to people, I get targeted every day. Someone tell me, "Oh, I love you. I want you to come on this podcast. We're going to pay you $5,000, and all we need to do is for you to send us XYZ." And I just delete. Because that's not how this works. But we just have a minute left, and I really just want you to tell us, in this moment where there are so many folks who are trying to target Black folks, hanging up, like we said, for seniors, deleting those accounts that you don't interact with, but any other advice you would give people about how to stay safe on the internet?
Yeah, listen, you got me thinking about that story about my patio furniture. I almost sent over a Venmo. Listen, I think at the end of the day, we have to treat the internet like we treat everything else. We don't put our social security number out in the public. We don't pay people that we don't know. We don't answer calls from unidentified numbers or numbers that are scrambled that we can't actually look at. And I think one thing that I would say to seniors and anybody else who goes through what you talked about, I just went through the same thing myself. Use the internet to find out about those things that you're unaware of. One of the wonderful things that I think about moving from analog, like VHH recorders and, cassette tapes and stuff like that, is because the internet actually provides a dynamic way for you to do your own inquiry. And for everybody listening, we've got to make sure that we're not invisible around the internet in terms of where they put these networks and what access we have. And we're definitely have to be visible and vigilant, really, right? Or even what you're saying, when we actually see things that we know are not true. In this election, a lot is on the line. So don't take those things at face value. Create a network of people, maybe your content moderation group. Hey, you saw that ad? Did you see that ad? What'd you think of it? Talk through it. Look for where that ad originated from. But don't believe everything that you see, you read, and just keep an informed conscience that if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. And just keep on moving.
Well, great way to end this show. Thank you so much again, Nicole Turner-Lee. Her book is called Digitally Invisible: How the Internet is Creating a New Underclass. You can get it every place where books are sold. You can go to her website and follow her on all things social. Again, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. The next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers in the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.